Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me today. On today's episode, we're going to be making some homemade sauerkraut. I have some nice organic cabbage that I've grown in my garden that we're going to be putting into the sauerkraut, and we also picked up some extra cabbage from the farmer's market that's going to be going into the sauerkraut as well. Now, to make the sauerkraut, you really only need two ingredients. You're going to need salt, and you're going to need cabbage. Now, as far as equipment goes, all you're going to need is a knife and a food-grade bucket or container that you're going to be able to spare for about 6 weeks. So, I'm going to show you what I'm doing. Let's get this process underway. Now, I've purposely gone and set up my little workstation outside in a way that's going to make it most copacetic for me to be able to process this cabbage and get it turned into sauerkraut. I have my cutting board and workstation right in front of me, and I have my buckets over here where it's all going to be going. I have a box down here on the ground that all the cores and less than desirable pieces are going to be going into, so I'm all set and ready to go. Now, when you get your head of cabbage that you're going to be using to make the sauerkraut, you're going to want to take off the leaves that have less than desirable spots on them. Like this spot here. You're not going to want that spot in your sauerkraut, so we're going to go ahead and remove mostly the outer leaves. Once you have the bad spots off of the cabbage, you're going to go ahead and cut this cabbage in half. I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half again just to make this easier. Now make sure you take these cores out of your cabbage. They're going to be difficult to ferment in there. You can use them, but you don't really want them. Now let's shred this up. You can use food mills or food processors to do this. Me personally, I just find it quicker and easier just to do it this way. And just to break it down a little smaller, I'm going to take it and cut it up a little bit more. Now remember, the size of cabbage that you have cut is the size of sauerkraut that you're going to have. So think about when you're using your sauerkraut, what size you're going to want. Are you going to want great big huge pieces of sauerkraut like this? Or are you going to want finer shreds like this? Now we have our first head of cabbage shredded in the bucket. Now we're going to add some salt. I'm going to add a handful of salt to this and sprinkle it around, evenly add it all the way around, and then we're going to go ahead and mix this in again. You can stir it up from the bottom, massage it in there real well. You just want to get the salt in contact with the cabbage so it's all salted. This is going to help draw the water out of the cabbage and help start the fermentation process. Now, what we're going to want to do as we go, we're going to want to go ahead and pack this down. I use a meat tenderizing hammer, and I literally just go around and I pack this down in there so it's a nice tight pack down in the bottom. You want to get as much airspace out as you can so this can properly ferment. This is going to draw out enough water that it should cover over the entire area and the full quantity of the cabbage that you have in the bucket. And that's what we're going to be calling the brine. The brine will be covering the cabbage down in the bucket once all the salt draws the water out of the cabbage. Alright, let's put some more cabbage in this bucket. Okay, now we're going to want to take off the less than desirable leaves. As you can see, these leaves have some spots on them, so we're going to go ahead and take these off. We don't want them to go into our sauerkraut. Alright, we're going to go ahead and cut that in half and take the core out of it. Now I also want to mention, take a minute here, if you get a piece that has one of these big thick veins in it on the cabbage, you can go ahead and get rid of this piece. This isn't going to make good sauerkraut, and it's just going to take room up in your bucket. Now this is the final layer of sauerkraut that I'm going to be packing into this bucket. Now, with the final layer, you're going to want to make sure the top is all nice and smooth. So I just take my knuckles, and I'm going to go ahead and just press everything down in there, nice and firmly, just to make sure the top is nice and smooth, and everything's packed down in there. Now we're going to go inside and finish this off. So as you can see, the salt is already starting to draw all the liquid out of the cabbage. So we're going to go ahead and get this put away and let it sit and start to ferment. Now here's how I do it. I'm going to take a couple pieces of cling wrap and put it over top of the bucket. Now since I have all these buckets that are the same size and I need to push down the cabbage inside, I'm going to take one bucket and put it inside the other. So the weight from this bucket is going to go ahead and push down on the cabbage in the bucket below to keep everything pushed down in there. I'm going to go ahead and put a piece of cling wrap over the top of the next bucket. And the cling wrap is only really there to keep anything from going into your cabbage as it's fermenting. The next bucket, and set that down on top of the one below. Now for the next bucket up, I have an empty bucket that I'm going to put down in on top of this, which is also going to help keep the cabbage pushed down into the brine. Now with the final bucket in place, we're going to go ahead and put some weight in here to keep this bucket pushed down on top of the one below. A 1 gallon jug of water will do just fine. Now as the salt draws out the liquids out of the cabbage, it's going to be making a brine, and it's going to be fermenting in there. We're going to let this go and ferment for about 6 weeks, and then we're going to go and take the cabbage out and can it. So in 6 weeks, we'll be doing another episode here on canning your sauerkraut. Thanks for joining me, guys. I hope to see you soon on my next episode. Until then, bye-bye.